Okay, similar to a heritage school, one of the others that we have are foreign language Saturday schools or night schools. And in particular, right here in Grand Rapids, we have the Chinese Saturday school, which your professor, Dr. Cooper, is the principal of. And in that case, it's not only to help students who come from families, Chinese families, to maintain their home language, but also somebody like myself or other children could enter this school on Saturdays to learn Chinese, learn Mandarin, and speak it in an immersion style, learn it in an immersion style and learn to speak it well. And then we have our foreign language high school classes that have been traditional for many, many years. The next question is, what can you do if you have students or kids from immersion or bilingual schools come into your classroom? Well, I'm assuming, first of all, that if this question is referring to you're in a non-bilingual classroom, and the student probably then came from a bilingual or an immersion school. So first of all, no matter what the grade level of elementary especially, they will probably need some remedial help in English with spelling and grammar, less of that with pronunciation because they are living in the American English-speaking world, so they hear it all around them. But if they have come from a bilingual classroom or an immersion classroom, there has been more time spent on the target language than a traditional English classroom. The bilingual students coming into your class will probably have a little bit more advantage in the English because the goal of the transitional bilingual classrooms is to move the students into English as quickly as possible, whereas the goal of the immersion students is to train up students who are bilingual and can dominate both languages. And those early years especially, even if you're an 80-20 program, will be spent with more Spanish in the first 2 to 3 years, K2, and then start introducing English back in, maybe in second and or for sure in third. Well, I do know of one school that doesn't introduce English until the 5th grade, and because they want to dedicate so much time to that target language. Kindergarten is less affected. There would be fewer issues because they're just starting and they haven't, they've had a lot, they've learned a lot of vocabulary, but they haven't gone as deeply into the reading and writing as once you get to 1st grade. So that would not be as hard. 4th grade on, the transition would be easier into that non-immersion or non-bilingual classroom, unless, of course, they have had learning difficulties and have had special help with that. High school or middle school shouldn't be an issue. So many of our immersion students make the transition. They choose not to continue the language in the high school, and they move quickly and easily into the English classrooms. But if they're transferring from a bilingual or immersion school to another bilingual or immersion school, the key part here would be to test the students first to make sure that they're at a similar level that the grade in your school has and exhibits. And so you would test their fluency in reading and writing especially. And math generally would tend to not be as difficult an area to transfer, in my opinion, because numbers you can work with so much more easily than the vocabulary. So the reading, writing, speaking, those would be the main issues, areas that you would need testing, especially in elementary. And then you would adapt the helps needed for each student as you evaluate the results from their tests that they've been given. If you have more questions on that, let me know. I just wasn't as sure what that question was addressing. So after all of this, you might say, well, why would I want to choose an immersion or a bilingual education classroom? First of all, I tend to be biased, but I'll tell you for the bilingual education is primarily for immigrants to the United States, and it helps them make a smoother transition to becoming fluent in English, because for the first 3 years, especially if they're coming here like at kindergarten age, They have a lot of support in their first language, a teacher who is a Spanish speaker who can help them, but is constantly inserting more and more English until hopefully by third grade they are able to transition to an all English classroom. In reality, most of them are not ready to be all English, but the government requirements are such that they are able to handle enough that they are moved into that all English classroom. So if you have some who've been moved into your classroom and you're not that second language or that home language speaker, just be aware that that child is still, even though they can tell you a lot, they are still missing a lot of vocabulary, and be prepared to front load a lot of those students with vocabulary that you are needing for your reading lessons, science lessons, math lessons, all of those, and be prepared for maybe a little extra time spent with them on that vocabulary. Obviously my area that I worked in and my bias is in the immersion education, and I love it because it teaches a second language and encourages the retention and development of the first language as well. I feel like we lose too much from our immigrant students when they come here and we say the goal is to get you speaking all English, and everybody outside on the street speak English, and all of the TV programs are in English, and all the restaurants, the menus are all in English. They never lack, moving here, they never lack for resources in English. And the immersion program so puts a stronger value on their first language, their home language, to say that's just as valuable, and you will become an even more valuable employee when you are bilingual. So don't lose that. Don't lose that opportunity to speak that heart language with your parents and your grandparents and cousins. Students who are in the immersion program learn to honor and to respect both cultures, respecting and not trying to diss on their home culture because they don't think it's good enough because now they're in the U.S. No, it's beautiful culture that they've come from and a beautiful family, and we want them to support and honor and respect that while learning and supporting and honoring and respecting the culture that they're living in now in the United States, which is such a blend of so many cultures anyway. It's a tremendous opportunity for the job market. If you're bilingual, it opens up so many more opportunities for you. I know even when I moved back from Venezuela, it was my being bilingual that opened up that teaching job for me at Southwest. It helps students to be more compassionate and with people of other languages and culture. They understand those struggles of embarrassment, the struggles of not being able to say exactly what they want to say, so therefore being shyer, where in reality they might not be that shy, but not feeling competent, they tend to not speak up as much. And it helps you, as especially working with immigrant students, peers, to use that language to help them feel more comfortable. It breaks down fear of people from different countries, from different languages, people who are different than themselves. And it's a wonderful culture of colleagues to work with. I've worked with people who have visited or lived in so many different countries, either in Europe, but probably more popularly in Latin America. And that's been so fun. We used to sit around the teacher lounge table and talk about the many words for one thing, depending on which country you came from. And it's fun to be challenged in this area of being on a cutting edge of education. And so many times I hear governors and presidents and other senators talking about what can we do to make our education better, that we're not competing well enough with the other world, rest of the world in education. And I keep saying over and over, this being bilingual or trilingual, it would be one of the best things we can do to be more competitive on the world market. And it offers tremendous opportunities for research for those of you who are going on into your master's programs. So those are kind of my reflections as Dr. Cooper asked me to share with you today. I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. I just ask that you send your questions to Dr. Cooper, and then she can collect those and send them to me, and I'll send them back via her as well. And hopefully we'll be on the other side of this coronavirus by the time you finish this course. Thank you very much. Have a good day and be really safe.